Hey there everyone, AJ back again for the Mighty Glue Stick channel. I make videos about Dungeons & Dragons lore full-time and have a collection of over 700 videos on monster ecology, fantasy world history, character classes and magic items on my channel. If you like what I do, please consider becoming a member of the channel by clicking the join button below, or becoming a member on Patreon where you can get access to all the scripts I write for these vids. Members of either also become members of the secretive Gluminati on my Discord server, and of course subscribing to me here as I upload at least twice a week and have a live stream every weekend. Gold dragons are very impressive creatures, regarded among their own kind as the most powerful of the terrestrial dragons. When standing before the true form of an ancient gold dragon, they are simply awesome in the true sense of the word. Not only are they enormous and mighty, with the perfect proportion of lean grace, speed and muscular ferocious power, they are refined, highly intelligent and have an almost fey aura of magical energy, which bleeds over between the lines of psionic, arcane and divine. In close proximity, their body radiates a warmth, and there is a gust of wind as they simply breathe in and out, so large are their lungs, with a distinct odour of saffron flowers and soothing incense and a touch of molten metal, a dry heat with a slight ozone overtone. They can be very quiet and motionless, particularly as they regard someone or study a book or an object. They move with the liquid grace of a dancer, placing their feet rather than stomping around, their tail lifted and sweeping out behind them, never striking objects accidentally, never dragging on the floor. The motions a gold dragon affects, such as making a grunt as they lift himself off a pile of coins, or a yawn or a stretch, or scratching a talon on the edge of a scale on their neck, or stroking the tendrils that grow under their face like a sage pulling on their beard as they think. All of these are deliberate humanoid gestures designed to seem familiar to humanoids, to put them at their ease and turn their mind from a very simple fact. At any moment, this tremendous predator could simply swallow a person whole with very little effort at all. One question I get asked a lot is, why are there so many dragons? Well, it's because they didn't evolve naturally. They are a magical species. They have their own place in the prime-material plane, linked closely to the earliest civilizations and the ancient primal beings who stood largely in opposition to the gods beyond the astral plane. Dragons may have DNA like any other living creatures, but that's just a framework for a far more complex relationship within every part of them that channels primal and divine influence. You could say that dragons are very, very strong in the Force, if this were Star Wars. They're almost manifestations of it, and when they pass on, they return to it, rather than always going to the outer planes, which makes them quite a lot different to most other living creatures found in the D&D worlds. So when the planet Toril recovered from being a dark world covered in ice during the age of the Aboleth and other ancient horrors, the ice retreated, thawed and revealed a supercontinent and vast ocean, and from this ocean crawled creatures that were already far more advanced than air-breathing fish. So Toril just skipped millions of years of evolution thanks to era after era of highly intelligent species who manipulated other life forms, leapfrogging the evolutionary process into very specific directions. And dragons are pretty much the primary example of this, and the reason there is such a dizzying array of them is because they are super adaptable, hyper-predators capable of subjugating worlds. Originally, there was a lot of mutation and random features within dragon populations, so it was like no two of them were alike, or were exactly alike. Even siblings could have different scale colours, different size and demeanour. They live in different habitats, so you'd get things like cobra dragons, for example. Drakes are a lot like that. There's some stability in different breeds, but the sheer array of drakes is amazing. They could make up their own self-contained ecosystem, nothing but drakes. Gold dragons were the original metallic dragons. All other metallic dragons are descended, one way or another, from them. In the early editions of D&D, the gold dragons were styled after Asian dragons, having a long body and tail, short limbs, with a shortened skull and snout and a bearded appearance. You can see this reflected in the moustache and beard-like barbels that give them that characteristic sagacious appearance. These barbels are a kind of flexible spine, not really like flesh or horn or hair, but with some aspects of all of those things. Gold dragons are wise and scholastic. They read any books that they can get and have their own language and own texts that stretch back thousands of years, the writings often preserved in gold. If you ask them, the gold dragons will often quote from the Book of the World when asked about origin stories of the dragons, somewhat jokingly. There is only one as far as they're concerned. It goes like this, and I'm quoting from the 2nd edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons sourcebook called the Draconomicon from page 2. The world was flat. Here, before the beginning of time, before Asgrath, the world shaper folded the cloth of existence into its final form, The world was flat, and above it hung the crystal sun that Zotha had wrought before Asgarath cast him down. Asgarath soared above the world and looked down on it, and she saw that it was good. And so Asgarath bent her form around the crystal sun and touched her breath to it, and the crystal sun burst into fragments that pierced the flesh of Asgarath, and her blood fell on the world. Where the drops fell, the powers of the world and the powers of the crystal came together, and the spawn of Asgarath came forth on the face of the world. Red they were, red that would later depart from its purity, but here before the beginning of time their red was the pure red of the shattered crystal sun. They spread their wings and took to the skies, circling around the still cold form of Asgarath. One after another, score upon score, they bent their breath against the body of Asgarath, and the skies rang with their lamentations. Only one of the spawn of Asgarath withheld his breath. Instead, he pulled a shard of the crystal sun from the flesh of Asgarath and used it to draw blood from his own flesh, and this blood fell upon the face of the world, and as before, there was movement where the blood fell. But the creatures that came forth from this blood were not of the pure red. Coloured like the products of the world they were, like the unliving metals. And the renegade raised his voice, and his voice was a trumpet. I, too, have created. The form of Asgarath began to stir, as the renegade knew it must, and the renegade spread his wings and flew, and the spawn of the renegade followed him into the farthest reaches of the world. Dragons are of the world. They have more of a connection to the elemental planes and the prime material plane than they do to the upper or outer planes. So the faiths and gods of humanoids generally don't rate extremely high on their radar. The gods certainly impact their lives though, as they impact everything else, but dragons generally have their own pantheon, which they've kind of left behind for the last few thousand years. Dragons have their own magical traditions. They have a range of spells and magic items that humanoids don't. For example, in the Cult of the Dragon sourcebook, you will find the draconic spell Find Humanoid Familiar, which is a 3rd level wizard spell that summons an orc, kobold, or any of the goblinoids. They have a magic to protect their hoard, to protect their clutch of eggs, their lair, and many spells to enhance their own formidable physical presence, plus a spell called Death Matrix, which will cause them to erupt in a violent explosion on their death. Their magic items are typically gorgeous, made of pure precious metals and the finest gems, such as the Amulet of Supremacy, that is most likely to simply immolate any non-dragon that attempts to put it on and attune to it. It enhances the dragon's breath weapon, supernatural powers, their natural physical presence, and their physical endurance. The Circlet of the Worm gives that dragon wearing it all the powers and attributes of a dragon of an older age category. They make use of items that enhance their bite attack or narrow the focus of their breath weapon for more precision. They craft special gems that make their hoard appear far more valuable, and they make magic armor for their wings. Gold dragons are particularly skilled at crafting and creating these items. They also spend countless hours studying magic, including keeping their own magical traditions alive and slowly developing them over centuries. It's unlikely that you will find the secrets of dragon magic among the hundreds of tomes in a gold dragon's library stacks. A gold would never entrust such information to so fragile an object, and in any case, books are quite a modern invention to dragons. Gold dragons are particularly fond of them, but no dragon magic is recorded in them. It's in gems and artifacts. Those created by gold dragons can take the form of a self-contained demi-realm within the gem, mindscapes that draw the astral form of a meditating seeker inside, where recorded and interactive memories can impart the knowledge and techniques and further guard against unworthy interlopers and thieves. Page 86 of the Core Monster Manual for 5th edition gives a single variant rule option for dragon spellcasters, listing them as possible innate spellcasters, removing a somewhat massive body of established back history in the process. But hey, let's have a look at what it says. Dragons are innately magical creatures that can master a few spells as they age. Using this variant, a young or older dragon can innately cast a number of spells equals to its charisma modifier. Each spell can be cast once per day, requiring no material components, and the spell's level can be no higher than 1/3 of the dragon's challenge rating, rounded down. The dragon's bonus to hit with spell attacks is equal to its proficiency bonus, plus its charisma bonus, and the dragon's spell save DC equals 8, plus its proficiency bonus, plus its charisma modifier. This would result in an ancient gold dragon with 7 spells it can cast, none higher than level 5. A challenge rating 17 creature has a proficiency bonus of +6 from the table found on page 8 in the manual. So the spell save difficulty class is 21, and the spells are plus 13 to hit their target. Notice that the charisma points are called both a modifier and also a bonus in the text box. Way to make it less confusing for new players, Wizards of the Coast, or shall I call you spellcasters of the Water's Edge. Personally, when it comes to the Gold Dragon, I would say throw that out and just give them class levels in Wizard. The variant rules are fine for dragons who have sorceress-style spell powers, but golds actually study magic, so they use their own intelligence modifier and have a vastly expanded knowledge of spells and rituals along with their other powers. Now the other powers, as you expect, Gold Dragons are physically very powerful. They rival the Red Dragons in that regard, and if it were just a matter of one-on-one brawling, the two would be very closely matched in a fight. But the other powers and abilities of the Gold Dragons put them beyond the ability of Red Dragons to challenge, and this video is largely going to focus on that side of them, since it's worth a greater explanation of just how formidable the Gold Dragons really are when you encounter them, and it can be difficult to really convey this. A great example given in the Draconomicon is Nexus, an ancient gold dragon that resides, rumour has it, deep in the great desert of Anarok, concealed perfectly in magical sustained luxury. There is no reliable reports if this is true or not, because none have ever discovered the truth and returned with their life, or their original unaltered memory of the exploration. It's a fairly common element when dealing with gold dragons that they can easily manipulate the minds of lesser creatures, including humanoids. So let's take a closer look at that regional and lair effect of the gold dragons, shall we? In the 5th edition core monster manual, it says that within its lair, every alternate round, a gold dragon can glimpse the future, gaining advantage on attack rolls, ability checks, and saving throws for that entire round. That is a mind-blowing advantage and informs us that outside of combat, the dragon's behaviour would also include the supernatural divinatory power to sense what's about to happen. Now imagine the conversation with this creature and how they already know what the player characters are about to say and what's about to happen. A great example of this is the movie The Matrix, where Neo goes to visit the Oracle. It's extremely easy for the Gold Dragon to give the impression that they can predict any future events, not just things about to happen right then and there, which is hugely intimidating and is perceived quite rightly as an ability of priceless worth. In confrontational situations, the Dragon can easily use this power to stop a fight before it begins, or end one quite suddenly, by dropping concealed barriers, opening trapdoors, or triggering teleportation circles to simply yeet the enemy out of there. Dragons actually hate having fights anywhere near their treasure hoard, so they don't want it disturbed or damaged, particularly golds who often have very expensive works of art included. The next layer effect occurs every second round. One creature the dragon can see within 120 feet of it must make its DC 15 charisma saving throw or be banished to a dream plane, a different plane of existence the dragon has imagined into being. To escape, the creature must use its action to make a charisma check contested by the dragons. If the creature wins, it escapes the dream plane. Otherwise, the effect ends at the start, initiative count 20 on the next round. When the effect ends, the creature reappears in the space they left, or in the nearest unoccupied space if that one is now occupied. So either way, the victim who fails this first charisma saving throw is going to lose their action that round, and they're going to go to a little place the dragon itself just imagined into existence. Okay, let's put these two concepts together. The dragon has the ability to glimpse into the future, so why not throw an opponent into a dream realm that is a duplicate of what's about to happen when they break from and return to reality? Yeah, that just hurt your brain. Okay, well, it should. Let's digest that a bit more slowly. The player character confronts the dragon. The dragon gives them a moment to reconsider this course of action. This may be unleashing a potent supernatural ability to mentally manipulate the reality around them. They conjure up a scene of what is about to happen when they unleash their ferocious breath weapon and incinerate everyone and everything standing in the path of this 60-foot cone of elemental fire, which sounds like someone tearing the soul out of a supersonic jet engine. By the way, dragon breath is a hell of a lot more powerful than simply belching a gout of flame. The dragon is literally channeling elemental power from their blood, and it explodes out of their mouth like a rocket engine. It's loud, it's violent, it masks the screams of anyone caught in it, thankfully. Anyway, The character makes another charisma saving throw just to nope their way out of that scene, and suddenly either they're back where they started, or they got shifted suddenly because something moved to where they were standing, such as the dragon's tail or wing, for instance, which is really disorientating and freaky. Even with waves of potent dragon fear to deal with, if that's not done so already, now would be a great moment to scare the piss out of them and have the character scream and run for it. But say they don't, and the dragon inhales as if they're about to breathe their fire breath, but they don't. The character is dealing with extreme intimidation, and the dragon is now using, on this new round, its other ability to get free advantage on any attack it chooses to make. That, my friends, is devastatingly effective. Now add the ability of the dragon to actually teleport opponents or itself using spell magic, and so player characters might not know that being thrown into a dream realm is only ever a temporary effect. They might assume a teleported character who they've lost sight of has been snatched away for an extended period of time to some prison realm. Now that was just one simple example of a dream realm. The dragon is free to create any sort of dream environment it can imagine, such as a horrific scene of carnage where everyone in the party is torn to shreds and being feasted on by a duplicate of the snatched away character who is watching themselves for one whole round transformed into a mind-wiped monster covered in gore, chewing on hunks of the other player character's flesh. That would certainly give the character a case of the heebie-jeebies, and the dragon can do this to them once every second round, and there is no defense against this aside from having a really good charisma saving throw. It's also pretty effective intimidation and distraction to the rest of the adventuring party when their companion vanishes for a moment and reappears screaming with pee running down their leg, or they fail a constitution save and spend a round vomiting convulsively, or shrieking and trying to brush off something that's not there, or frantically leaping away from a perfectly good floor that they just saw cracked and fall away into a chasm full of demons and lava. The dragons tend to fight each other one-on-one, so a gold dragon against a red dragon? First round, red dragon vanishes, reappears, the gold crits the red with advantage, rinse, lather, repeat. Other dragons know damn well that a gold dragon can not only defeat them, the gold can make a point of humiliating and terrifying them when it does so. Okay, the lair of the gold dragon is usually an impressive place. It's impressive as they are physically. They find an out-of-the-way spot of natural isolation and beauty, such as a concealed glade, a ruin, waterfall and pond in an overgrown glade. They'll select a large cavern in the stone wall behind the waterfall and hire the finest dwarven stonemasons to extend and enhance the place until it looks like nothing short of a palace, with branching chambers for libraries, laboratories and chambers for quiet reflection and meditation, everything sized to the dragon's scale, of course. The dragon's hoard is not just a massive pile of precious metals and gems with stacks of amazing artwork all over the place, well secured in a stout vault, of course. It's also the tons of valuable stone used in the lair's construction. It's the artwork, the carvings, the murals and delicate mosaic tiles covering the floor, balconies, ramps and ceilings. The power of the dragon to manifestly alter reality, cast illusions and sense remote locations allows them to twist the internal geometry of their lair to give it an almost nonsensical dimension. One can climb a sweeping staircase that opens out to a sun-soaked balcony, like a sultan's cushion-padded harem, looking out over a foreign land, even though you're inside solid rock, you can swear. Another chamber might have crystal walls that look to all the world like it's got a vibrant tropical reef just beyond it, with merfolk going about their daily lives in an incredible underwater coral city. This isn't just decorative magic the dragon finds pleasing, although that's a large part of it. Some are actually connected to distant locations, so the dragon can communicate easily with agents and plots going on thousands of miles away. On one small point, ignore it if you wish, a gold dragon collects coins from all around the continent of Faerun, so many coins in its treasure hoard might not be accepted at face value by the local merchants. It might be necessary to smelt them down into trade bars that you can then exchange for a proper value. Now, gold dragons draw their power from a connection to the inner and prime material planes, the world. Gold dragons are much more like the original concept of the Oriental dragon. A gold dragon's sail-shaped wings start from its shoulders and trace down to the tip of its tail, letting it fly with a distinctive rippling motion as it swims through the air. A gold dragon wormling has scales of dark yellow with metal flecks, and these flecks grow larger as the dragon matures, and as the gold dragon ages, its pupils fade away until its eyes resemble pools of molten gold. Its horns sweep back from its nose and brow, echoing the twin frills that adorn its neck, and they're very graceful and flexible, but often don't move that much if they're talking with visiting humanoids they've summoned to their lair. A rare enough occurrence, I assure you, but when the gold dragons do, they don't want to intimidate the humanoids too much. Gold dragons tend to rest on furnishings custom made to conform to their body, often with an armrest they can sit and read books for extended periods of time. Now, the regional effects of the gold dragon presence are, as you would expect, quite surreal. Banks of beautiful opalescent mist manifest within 6 miles of the dragon's lair. The mist doesn't obscure anything, it assumes haunting forms when evil creatures are near the dragon or other non-evil creatures in the mist, warning other creatures of the danger. Now, if these haunting forms also warn the dragon of danger, that implies that they're not just mental manifestations of the dragon's imagination. So what are they? Astral creatures? Ghosts? Who knows? I'm inclined to think that they're actually echoes from the ethereal plane who are warning people of danger. Also, whenever a creature that can understand a language sleeps or enters a state of trance or reverie within 6 miles of the dragon's lair, the dragon can establish telepathic contact with that creature and converse with it in its dreams within 6 miles. The creature remembers its conversation with the dragon upon waking. What extent does the dragon have the power to look in on the dreams or sense the mental presence of other intelligent beings within 6 miles of its lair? That's quite a stunning ability when you think about it. They could easily keep track of the movements of everyone in a nearby town. They could trade secrets, orchestrate the whole community into any number of different actions. That sort of influence and potential to control others is quite mind-boggling. Imagine if every time a city leader wanted to sleep they got this nagging or screaming at by a terrifying dragon. How long would it take to break that leader and get them to do exactly whatever the dragon wanted them to do? Now, gold dragons are the very model of lawful good, but still, absolute power corrupts absolutely, as they say. Okay, let's get back to the 2nd edition Draconomicon, and I'm going to read directly on what it has to say about golden dragons, society, and such. Gold dragons are the most lawful of dragon species, and they form the most orderly societies. Unlike all other dragon races, golds select one of their number as overall ruler of their species. This dragon is his or her resplendence, the king or queen of justice, and is assisted by a number of lords. They also select from the gold dragon population, these lords. The King of Justice for Western Faerun, as of 1357 DR, was a great worm named Lareth. Nobody knows for sure where his resplendence lives, although there are almost as many tales as tellers. His home is a castle deep in the Elven Woods near Mithranor, some say, or a citadel in the midst of Anarok, or a huge cave complex on a magically concealed island in the midst of the Dragon Sea. How appropriate, and actually probably more accurate. Or even floating a cloud city that drifts wherever his resplendence wishes. The gold dragons themselves know where his resplendence Lareth lives, or at least how to contact him, but they're not telling anybody else. The King of Justice is usually the oldest and most powerful gold dragon in the region. Even although the dragons hold official elections when their position must be filled, these are always by acclamation, so they select of them. Only once has this been recorded to have 2 equally qualified candidates who were proposed for the position. Since it was one male and one female, showing the wisdom that always characterises a potential King of Justice, the 2 candidates settled the potential divisive matter by swearing an oath of concord, basically the dragon equivalent of marriage, and sharing the responsibilities and authority equally. Kings retain their position until their deaths, or more likely until they decide to step down in favour of one whom they think will serve the race well. There are reputed to be several retired kings living in remote parts of Faerun at the moment. Unlike most human kings, his resplendence, or their resplendence as the case mentioned above, never finds it necessary to actively rule. The position of king could just as easily be described as elder advisor. The other dragons turn to the king for advice and guidance when they make decisions that could affect the species as a whole, or the flow of history on Toril. These policy decisions often refer to the self-appointed quests that gold dragons often go on. Although the result of a particular quest, say to eradicate certain evil monsters that are threatening a human settlement, may appear obvious and highly desirable, dragons often consult with the king before undertaking the quest just to make sure that there's no hidden consequences that the dragon has missed. Are the monsters necessary in the ecosystem, for example, or to keep under control creatures that would, if allowed to multiply freely, pose an even greater threat to the human settlement further down the line? If the proposed quest is one that involves political matters or the relationship between two or more human states, the dragon will certainly request advice from the king, and his resplendents will think long and hard before answering it. As the title implies, the king is also the dispenser of justice in Gold Dragon society. Unlike the Bronzes, Golds have a fairly elaborate system of laws. Like the Bronzes, they only have one commonly used punishment, which is called proscription. Gold Dragons take proscription extremely seriously. Golds are social among their own kind, although much more dignified and reserved about it than any Brasses or even Bronzes, and enjoy the company and conversations of the short-lived races, and the humans and demi-humans. Contact with these races is usually conducted when polymorphed into a less daunting form. Of all the humanoid races, Golds enjoy the company of elves above all. Even though elves are usually much more chaotic and unpredictable than the dragons, their long lifespans give them an almost draconic appreciation for the sweep of history. Golds are unique among dragonkind in that they have a written language of their own. They can only write this language when polymorphed into human or other suitable forms, since their large claws, although dexterous, are inappropriate for holding a delicate writing implement. They keep extensive written histories that, although detailed, tend to view everything from the draconic point of view, which diminishes their value to humanist historians somewhat. As an example, the draconic history dating from the time of the Battle of Singing Sands in 1194 DR between Aglarond and Fae was recently discovered. The history deals very little with the battle, concentrating more on the hatching date of the then current King of Justice's offspring and on the trial of a rogue dragon since proscribed, so his name is stricken from the history, who seem to have provided military intelligence to the forces of Fae. That's really all only mention they get. Many golden dragons are fascinated by magic, of course. They love to add magical items to their hoards. These they investigate and examine and sometimes even find uses for. Most of the super mage dragons, written about with almost godlike powers that are frequently mentioned in legends, are gold dragons. Gold dragons are devoted parents, nurturing and protecting their young until the offspring choose to leave. This is occasionally not until the younger dragon reaches a full adulthood of 101 years or more. By tradition, the first act that a gold must perform on leaving its parents is to visit the King of Justice and offer its obedience. To dragons, this is more of a joyous occasion than an onerous task. Golds have no preferred habitat, and they range widely throughout the realms. Gold dragons have been sighted in various spots around the Thunder Peaks and in the mountains between the Farseer marshes and the High Horn. A mated pair bound together eternally by the Oath of Concord are said to dwell in the southern reaches of the Desert Mouth Mountains. These two have also provided valuable information to the rulers of Cormier about planned goblinoid incursions from the Goblin Marches. Recurring rumours claim that an entire orc raiding army was wiped out by one of these two dragons alone. A particularly powerful gold dragon retired king of justice named Protantheris is thought to live in New Volerond and the mountains in the midst of the Great Glacier. If your character is planning to go visit a gold dragon, make sure to take along a bowl of fat pearls and the largest gems your character can find and afford, as this is a welcome offering to the dragon, as they love to snack on this stuff, like we would munch on trail mix. I'll be talking more about the metallic dragon's ability to polymorph and operate in the humanoid societies right under their noses in later videos, and may touch back on the gold dragons a few times as well. There will also be more on draconic lore and their code of honor in later videos, and of course the dragon magic and magic items. But for now, please hit the like button if you made it this far, subscribe if you like what I do, check out my Patreon for all the full scripts for these videos, subscribe to Viewer Prime with my sign-up code AJ Pickett for a 5-day free trial and low price of $4 per month for my best content, as well as some other channels in the ever-growing lineup. Buy some sweet merchandise from my Teespring shop where you'll geek with pride, and as always, thanks for listening, and I'll be back with more for you very soon.